It's the moment in my life when I decide, I have a choice. Am I going to be present or will I check out? And when I decide to open to what is happening in my life and I actually let myself feel the emotions and sensations that accompany my thoughts and reactions, it's that moment. Or it's when I decide to turn away, that I just can't take it today and I shut out the world around me. It's when I numb. It's when I become a bystander to my own life and to the life around me. And I think, I was thinking of it as an intersection, but more truthfully, I could describe it just as the place where I live. It's not a moment that I'm passing it by. It's more like the track that I run on in my life, that I'm moving towards and away from at all times. It's not static, that I'm always present or that I'm always tuned out, but it's this dynamic process in life, and it's just the place where I live. I'm a minister. My spiritual life is important to me. I want to open my eyes to the world around me, to be present, to be fully alive, to not miss out on this gift because I'm in my own chattering mind. I want to be here to engage the world. And other times, really, I just want to survive. I just want refuge from the challenges of my life and the pain around me or in me. And I want comfort, I want pleasure, I want ease. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a balanced life, that we also seek those things. It makes sense that any of us would want that. And I've come to learn that watching TV or a movie does not always mean we're escaping or checking out. It can be a chosen form of entertainment or relaxation, which I greatly enjoy. I'm just saying that I know my motivations for why I do that sometimes are not always clean. At times, I hold so tightly to this belief that I'm just supposed to be happy. What are these annoying feelings? I'm just sick of feeling this. It's exhausting that I hold so tightly to my desire for what I think my life should be, that I push against reality and I force solutions in a way, that I get like this and I end up hurting myself trying to avoid the reality of life, that sometimes we just have discomfort and pain. Being an adult emotionally, I think it means having the courage to be with reality, with the fact that not everything feels great, and that I can't just wish things away. Being an adult emotionally means, for me, practicing and choosing to have the courage to actually look at what is really happening and to allow myself to feel and to think and to accept reality so that then I can make choices about how I'll move forward. And because I find that so incredibly challenging, my spiritual life is the tools that I have come to use to find ways to just be in my skin as a human. I don't know why we teach all these things in school, but we don't teach us, how do you just be in your own skin and deal with the reality of life? Why don't we have more conversations about that? Well, I think that's what we do here. And mindfulness and meditation have given me some of the tools to do the counterintuitive adult thing, which is to welcome and befriend whatever life is presenting at the moment, no matter how unwanted it may be. Which includes the sensations of carrying a child, which has been giving me the great opportunity to practice mindfulness of just unwanted discomfort or ailments or what have you, and the impending birth process that I will be going through in less than 4 weeks. Gives me a great opportunity to physically have this reminder. Let's keep practicing how can I be present with what is uncomfortable? And how can I carry that with more ease? I can't just put on a movie and pretend like this baby is not kicking into my ribs and that I can breathe when I can't. And so there's a book I've been turning to called Mindful Birthing that's helping me be with and practice how do I welcome what's unwanted? How do I be with discomfort? She has a lot of exercises to help cultivate what you pay attention to with your mind. For example, they have exercises where they ask you to walk around your house holding ice in your hand while you just pay attention to your breath or to your walking, or pick a focal point of something you want to look at, just anything to tune into something other than the pain of the cold ice in your hand for a minute or two. Doesn't that sound fun? They also, in our birthing classes, asked my husband to do that as well, which I was like, oh, a little empathy moment. He didn't like it. But it was much easier to be with that when I attuned my mind to my breath than if I just sat there and thought about how cold and miserable this was. There was a different way of being with that experience. But what I found kind of interesting about this is that we're talking about mindfulness as a way to tune out what is happening at some level. So mindfulness it's like a hammer. You can choose what you want to do with it. You can use it for all kinds of purposes. And it makes sense to me during labor to use it to tune into calming, relaxing my body so that my uterus can do what it needs to do and I'm not reacting in fear the whole time. But it can also be helpful in life with whatever that ice might be that you're holding, that you can't set down, that is not just an exercise, but that you're living with, to be able to cultivate your mind with with what level of attention will I hold this, and how can I bring awareness to it without drowning in it? That we can be mindful without going totally under, which is often, I think, the fear. That if we feel the discomfort or we befriend the unwanted, then it's going to really hurt us and we'll be overwhelmed and we won't be able to handle it. And that's why I'm grateful for mindfulness practices, to show me that there's actually a way to be here and to be with this that doesn't have to involve going numb or checking out. That we can choose to tune into a larger reality than our chattering mind, than our fears. And that is spiritual work. And it's entirely necessary if we want to be people who open our hearts to one another. If we want to be people who refuse to accept the fragmentation of life that comes with violence and oppression. In Miriam Greenspan's book, it's called Healing Through the Dark Emotions, The Wisdom of Grief, Fear, and Despair. Doesn't that sound like light, fun summer reading? I love this book. I come back to it all the time. I started reading it last summer, and I just come back to it over and over again. It's a resource that I use to help me have the courage to keep doing the counterintuitive thing, which is to befriend grief, fear, and despair, to keep my heart open. She calls them the dark emotions because she says they're the ones that we try to push into the dark to keep out of our awareness because they scare us and they're uncomfortable. So we push them away. We've been told they're negative, yet she says there's wisdom in these feelings. Individually, fear can tell us to pay attention, that something may be threatening us. Maybe, may not be. Grief tells us that we've lost something of value. Despair asks us, she writes, to change our ways, or we will remain hopeless. And collectively, as a people, when we listen to our fear, grief, and despair, they can call us to these things. Fear can call us to defend and protect our earthly home and the wholeness of our connection to one another. Grief can call us to join with others in a communal uprising against the status quo. We are called by our fear, she says, to descend together into a collective dark night of the soul so that we can renew ourselves, that we might emerge with a sense of meaning that gives our lives new purpose and that's compatible with a peaceful earth. Sounds terrifying. Let's collectively descend into a collective dark night of the soul, shall we? And yet, if we don't have the spiritual courage to do that, how are we going to actually tap into the energy and the wisdom we need to stand and not crumble and not go numb and not become bystanders to the ongoing violence and oppression that we see in society? I think that's why we have church. It's one of the many reasons. Because I can't do that alone. I won't. I'll be terrified. Greenspan shares, she said, "For 30 years as a psychotherapist, I've listened to painful stories, people coming for the talking cure. They generally wear their heart's pain as a badge of shame. They believe they're suffering because of some core defect resulting from bad parenting, and that therapy will rid them finally of this defect, will take away their painful feelings, hopefully forever, that they could achieve a life completely free of suffering." She says, "No one gets through life without some share of suffering and sorrow. We all grieve life's inevitable losses. We fear the inherent uncertainty and vulnerability of existence, and increasingly as a population, we are familiar with the despair of troubled relationships, unexpected traumas, inner emptiness, and global degradation and terror. As much as joy, wonder, and love are a part of our human endowment, so are fear, grief, and despair, no matter how much we wish sometimes that they weren't." She says there's no way to avoid these emotions forever, but the good news is that we can learn how to befriend them without being ruled by them, to be mindful without being overwhelmed. She says their purpose is not to make us miserable, it's not to drive us crazy, to shame, weaken, or defeat us, but rather to teach us about ourselves, each other, and the world, to open our hearts to compassion, to help us to heal and change our lives. These emotions bring us information, and they supply us with energy, the raw material for spiritual empowerment and transformation. So often I fear that if I make space for despair, which how can you not be a minister of social justice and wrestle with despair? I don't know. So I found this book to help. And when the despair comes, it's so easy to think, well, why would I ever want to listen to that? And who wants to hear me preach about despair? And yet it's going to be there. We're going to despair at times, or sometimes a lot of the time. So what would it be like to actually listen to that despair? Not as something that if we open to it, that it might create an ending, that we'll just give up and become depressed and have no hope or no. What if we befriended that despair as if it had a story to tell us, that it was actually reminding us that it is painful to not be in relationship with each other, that it hurts, that it makes the meaning of life dwindle when we don't have mercy among us? What if it could soften our hearts and encourage us to be in relationship in new ways? She calls this emotional alchemy, a process by which something ordinary is transmuted into something very precious. That when we make room for these unwanted and what I find personally very scary experiences, that we make room for them, it's not to just wallow in them, it's to make room for transformation. So we're going to practice that together this morning, to tolerate. We've been tolerating some uncomfortable feelings. And we're going to share in a meditation in a moment. But before we do that, let's begin again with that by bringing our mindfulness into song and breath. Bring some awareness to your normal breath. And then if you so choose, consciously slow it down and elongate your breath. Breathe deeply into your body, feeling the breath enter at your abdomen and fill your chest all the way up to your throat. Feel your diaphragm expanding, your chest opening. And as you exhale, feel your breath leaving your throat and chest, and then your belly. Perhaps pull your belly in a little and flatten it at the end of the exhale to expel any remaining breath. As you breathe out, Focus all your attention on the out-breath. As you breathe in, focus all your attention on your in-breath. If you're feeling particularly stressed or in emotional turmoil, you might try exhaling through your mouth rather than through your nose. This is a quick and easy way to relieve tension you might be holding around your emotions and to be able to settle into them more mindfully. This is a foundation upon which I invite us to now begin to attend to the body's emotional signals as we consciously breathe. Greenspan writes, "To feel and befriend your dark emotions, you must know how to listen to your body. You might need a listening aid to develop the skill of emotional sensitivity. Luckily, we all have one, the conscious breathing that we're doing now. Breathing into the body helps soothe our sorrows, fear, and despair. It also helps us locate them. Conscious breathing helps us tune into the numbness that we've used as a substitute for soothing when we don't actually know how to authentically soothe our pain. So we're going to practice being with our pain, not numbing as a substitute. So as you breathe, take a few moments to listen to your body. What are you feeling? Where in your body is this feeling located? What are your body's particular signals for sorrow, for fear or despair, or whatever emotion you might be feeling? There are some common locations and sensations for emotions. Many people experience grief in their chest. Many people feel and experience fear in their gut. When fear is very acute, you might notice your intestines churning, or you get a stomach ache or diarrhea. Despair tends to be more of a full body sensation, with a kind of numb hollowness as the primary sensation. However, your sensations might be different. Just as breath is the medium of soothing, it's also the medium of awareness. Once you've located an emotion, or more than one in your body, you might try bringing this long breath that we started with, just elongating your breath. On the inhale, really emptying out on the exhale. You might simultaneously hold the awareness of the sensations of the emotion in your body as you keep breathing. Breathing through and with the sorrow in your chest, the fear in your gut, the despair in your heart. And there's no real effort here. You're not trying to change how you feel. You're simply bringing awareness to it through your breath. Breathing into your emotions in your body. You can become more mindful and tolerant, familiar with them. We're probably all familiar with the reactive energy that comes with the impulsive decision making or just sheer reaction that comes with many of these feelings. But what comes when we just breathe alongside them? What else is waiting there to be heard?